Hey, welcome back to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, and trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so you can easily choose the best watch for yourself in the comfort of your own home. We offer the lowest prices anywhere online, and if you'd like to know the price, simply click on the links in the description below. We greatly appreciate it if you purchase your next watch from us at JazzTime.com. Today we'll be talking about a very special watch, the first that we've had in our inventory, the Richard Mille RM30. This one is in rose gold with diamonds, with a titanium case, as you could see a little bit earlier, with the titanium etching on the side of the case, with a black rubber strap. All right, this is the top of the line of the RM30s, which is itself sort of an entry or introductory model in the Richard Mille line of timepieces. This particular one is the highest of the high in this particular category. All right, so I'll be going over the case, the dial, the bezel, the crown functions, as well as the movement, which you can see directly through the dial, as well as the bracelet. And I'll be giving my thoughts on all these features throughout this video. All right, so starting off with this case, we have what is a tonneau shaped case, which is sort of like this sort of oblong rectangle, sort of almost like an elliptical with squared off top and bottom corners, if that's any means of measuring this sort of shape, but it is known as a tonneau shape, T-O-N-N-E-A-U. Across 42 millimeters, if you include the winding crown, 48 millimeters. It has a 25 millimeter lug width, lug to lug span 50 millimeters from top to bottom of the case, and what I call a 53 millimeter effective lug to lug span if you include the flare of the straps, right, measuring the internal space. At least that's according to my measurement. All right, so keep that in mind when you're shopping around for one of these. Just note that these straps do actually flare out quite a bit and add to that sort of height that you can see of this watch. Okay, this one is also 14 millimeters at its thickest, that's right dead center of the watch, and 9 millimeters at the thinnest points at the top and bottom portions of this watch. It's entirely made, well, most of it is actually made of titanium, as you can see on this case. We have the side of the case with sort of this sand-blasted titanium sort of look to it, with an overall diffuse lighting type of reflection or refraction of light off of those surfaces there. You see the same thing on both sides, and the bezel here actually is the entire front portion here. As you can see, it's all in red gold. Gold mixed with a little bit of copper and a little bit of platinum for that added strength, durability, and just long-lasting color. And as you can see, we have 309 set stones, resulting in about 4.2 carats, which is actually quadruple that of what you would find on an Audemars Piguet bezel, all right, for those that are diamond bezel Audemars Piguet watches. Now, these diamonds are exclusively untreated and mined directly out of the earth, and Richard Mille do attest that they have taken due diligence and respect the human rights, labor rights, working conditions, health, safety, and environmental factors, all factors of responsible mining and human rights all in one. So when you purchase one of these, you know that you're getting an ethical piece of timekeeping. All right, now taking a look at this dial on the inside, well, there's not much of a dial to speak of because it's just all sapphire crystals with printing on them, really. It's fully skeletonized with bold and equally skeletonized Arabic numerals, sort of like that, the way that you would bold, letters and numbers in, say, calculus or physics. You see the same thing with these Arabic numerals signifying the hours, except for the 7, which is taken up by that date aperture, a vertical date aperture. As you can see, I always set my watches to the second, and here it is 02 for the date. All right, now this one on this dial, we have the second hand with a red tip for ease of distinction of its location when it's moving along the periphery. The other hands, the hours and minute hands, also skeletonized to maintain unity with the rest of this dial. And the model number is actually printed directly right next to that 3 o'clock position, counterbalanced by the power reserve indicator at the 9 o'clock position, which goes up to about 50 hours of power reserve. All right, so it's actually kind of difficult holding this watch and filming a video for it because, well, it's a very vertical watch, but, you know, videos are usually horizontal in their aspect ratio. So you're probably watching this on a 16:9 type of screen anyway. All right. Enough complaining. We have, again, the vertical date aperture at the 7 o'clock hour, and as I'm winding the crown, you can see that the power reserve indicator is actually starting to go up, and it takes quite a few winds because I would typically be done by now with a Rolex watch or Audemars Piguet, but I'm only about halfway at 30 hours. This one goes up to 50. Well, it displays up to 50 hours, but the power reserve actually does vary between 50 and 65. As you can see, it's not a hard stop once you reach that 50. All right, now onto the crown functions. At the default position, this crown actually does wind. As you can see, as I have been doing, it has this nice rubber lining to it, which makes it very easy to grasp, and it just makes the winding so much easier than, say, holding onto a knurled sort of crown, right? You have that added sense of, you know, just durability right there. You can pull the crown out to the first notch, and doing so will allow you to advance the date by 1. Now it's about a half turn of the crown, all right? But as you can see, there's a date wheel disc also on a sapphire crystal. Now as I move it, you can now actually see where that disc is within the movement. All right, and you can see the date advancing by 1 with each half turn of this winding crown. All right, and it's also a very sort of a modern digital sort of font that you see in that date aperture. Very interesting and just different overall. And that's just what Richard Mille are doing with their sort of timepieces here. And note that the background of that aperture is actually a white sort of a elliptical, maybe also tonneau shaped, although somewhat inverted from the tonneau shape of this case, right? And the date wheel itself is on a completely transparent and glare-proofed on both sides, transparent sapphire crystal as well. All right, so keep that in mind when you're adjusting the time or the date there. It does take about half a turn. You probably won't be advancing it quite as much as I just did. Okay, pull the crown out to the final position. Note that that seconds hand has actually stopped, so you can then just adjust the time precisely where it needs to go. Now, keep in mind that with this tonneau shape, you get that irregular sort of shape to this dial, and therefore, well, it gets a little harder to adjust the time in certain regions, but closer to the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock and even, you know, the 6 and 12 o'clock positions, it's quite easy to set the time based on the position of the minute hand. All right, so those are probably the best times to adjust the time itself. Anyway, once it's set, you simply just press the crown back in, nice and easy. By the way, this watch does feature a 50-meter water resistance, so I wouldn't take this much further than surface swimming. But honestly, this is more of a on-land sort of sports type of model or sports watch, and with that sort of emphasis on engineering, aerospace, and, you know, maritime applications, especially with this grade 5 titanium, for which, you know, it can be used in all of those industries, including aerospace. You'd be hard-pressed to find this necessarily a dress watch, but more of a sporty, out-and-about type of watch. And certainly with this presentation, how can you not? All right, and also there's one little aspect I didn't mention here on the 12 o'clock position of this dial. Now, if I continue to wind this, well, nothing really happens other than the power reserve going up. And if you take note, just above the center, you have this little switch that's on and off, and the on signifies that the clutch is engaged. I can actually manually wind this watch using the winding crown at the 3 o'clock position, but if I wind it enough, and go all the way up to 50 hours of power reserve. Note that it actually switches to that off position. That means I can no longer wind the watch manually using the winding crown, right? I'm not feeling any resistance anymore. It's literally declutched. Declutched means that, well, exactly that. You can no longer wind the crown, and in order to actually be able to manually wind the crown, you actually have to wait another 10 hours until it gets down to 40 hours of power reserve until that clutch engages once more. And why is that? Well, that's to basically prevent any damage or stress onto the mainspring barrel of the watch, something that a lot of watches actually do automatically, but this is the first time I've seen it actually indicated on the watch so that you actually know when you can stop winding the watch. It's a very, very good feature, and I quite like this. And what makes all of this work? It is the in-house made caliber RMAR1 or R Richard Mille AR1. It features the center hours with the minutes, seconds, and the date wheel, the manual winding, and power reserve indicators with what I just showed you, the declutchable rotor. Right, on the inside, well, I don't really need to spin it around because you see literally the whole movement all the way through, but there is a size of 30.25 by 28.45 millimeters. It's not a round movement. It's a movement that sort of fits this case, this rectangular, rounded rectangular case, the tonneau shaped case. It's 5.6 millimeters thick on the inside. It features 40 jewels with a free-sprung glucifer balance, Elinvar balance spring with Inca Block shock protection. Inca Block being the technology that Panerai also uses. So you know that when you can take some bumps like a Panerai can made for the Royal Italian Navy, this can take the same amount of shock as well. It beats at a frequency of 28,800 vibrations per hour or 4 hertz. Right? And it also has base plate and bridges, also in grade 5 titanium, just like that of the case here. Very, very strong, very durable, and all of it is basically hand polished wherever it wasn't sandblasted. So tons of work went into making this. And also take note that there is a unidirectional winding rotor with an 18 karat or a set of 18 karat white gold weight segments, as you can see. And on the edges of this rotor, as you can see on the left and the right side, there are little divots for where you can actually pivot the adjustments on this rotor, which actually change the shape and therefore the speed at which the rotor will actually rotate around in place. So you can actually have a rotor that works well while sedentary, or you can have a rotor that works well when active without overwinding the watch. All right, so very useful there. Now, taking a look at the framing of this watch, I'll have to zoom out quite a bit for you to see this. This is the strap here, the rubber strap, the black rubber strap that comes with this watch, right? Nothing too out of the ordinary here, although the good thing is that it has the pin buckle style here. Also, a 18 karat red gold brushed clasp with sandblasted name, the word form logo there, the word mark logo rather, of the Richard Mille brand, nicely centered onto that clasp there with a nice sandblasted finish on the sides. So most watch manufacturers actually just leave this with a high polish or, you know, equivalent satin brush finishing. Richard Mille have taken that extra step and decided to, you know, let's just sandblast it and put a nice vertical finish, satin finish on the side there. So all these little details that Richard Mille really pay attention to, nothing is overlooked. Now, when it comes to this clasp here, it's actually a double deployment, all right? And this double deployment is not like anything I've ever seen. It's a titanium clasp double deployment with a metal piece, a very thin metal piece that actually bends very slightly to allow for that movement of each side of this sort of butterfly style clasp. All right, so as you can see, as I slowly bend it, it does bend down a little bit, but when it snaps back, that is what provides the pressure required to actually keep the clasp shut. So you have literal metal just holding it in place, and there's very little friction going on here, except, you know, on the very specific point at which that thin sheet of metal actually maintains contact with the clasp here, and you're honestly not really going to see any wear or tear on this part, provided you obviously take care of it. And while we're here, you know what's going to happen next. I'm going to try it on, give you my thoughts as to how it wears on the wrist. All right, so now keep in mind, my wrist is about 7 inches in circumference, 18 centimeters, all right, in metric. And I actually did size this properly to my wrist. And actually, I do quite like how it fits, because that tonneau-shaped case, very thick in the middle and tapering off at the ends there. It fits very well on my wrist. It could fit well on literally any size wrist, because there's literally no space here underneath these lugs. Well, what lugs? Honestly, it fits so seamlessly with that black rubber strap. And for extra venting, this black rubber strap actually does have 3 little spaces in there, very evocative of, say, Formula One racing cars and just aerospace in general. Very aerodynamic in its look, and giving extra venting to the wrist, I can't complain. It feels very comfortable to wear. The minder loops also, as you would typically see, actually, if you were to buckle this on, keep in mind that you should fold it, but also place the strap through the minder loop at the same time. Now, this is where I sort of ran into a little bit of trouble here, because if I tried to adjust the strap and push it through the minder loop, I did have a chance of accidentally opening the clasp, right? But if you have this sized to your wrist properly using that pin buckle on the inside, well, it's not gonna slide off, because just opening one side is not enough to have it fall off the wrist. As you can see, it's not quite enough. I'd have to actually open it all the way, all right? But I'm not done here. Let me keep it on my wrist, and let me tell you how does it feel though in terms of the weight? Well, very heavy, because of that, that red gold taking up a lot of that weight. The titanium is actually rather light. I can tell just by the way that I'm swinging it around. I can feel more weight sort of on the outer edge, which is, that red gold bezel. The inner edge, not so much. The counterbalance of this bracelet, not quite enough, to make this, feel like it's like you're not wearing anything. And certainly with that 14 millimeter thickness there, it's quite a thick and chunky boy. But it feels good on the wrist, and that's thanks to the curvature of that watch case with this very form-fitting rubber strap. And I envision if you have a larger wrist, this would sit very nicely on top. If you have a smaller wrist, it would also sit nicely on top. There's no risk that this will not fit. All right, so anyway, enough of what I think. What do you guys think about this watch? This is quite a doozy, this one. Our first Richard Mille, featured on Jazz Time's YouTube channel, also on jazztime.com. Links in the description below if you want to purchase a watch like this. This specific watch as well is for sale on our website, jazztime.com. And if you like this video, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification so you can be notified when we go live with another video like this one. All right, and as always, if you'd like to purchase this watch, any other watch, your next watch, your first watch, maybe you just want to dive right in and get a Richard Mille for your first watch, well, I'd say you're nothing short of insane, but hey, if you got the money to spend, you can certainly do so very easily with us at Jazz Time. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. One more thing I actually forgot to mention about this watch, actually. It does have a little bit of luminescence on it, although not that much. All right, so just the hour, minute, and seconds hands sort of tipped with that luminescence, along with the sort of tiny dots at the periphery, sort of signifying the positions of those hour markers. All right, as my camera is struggling to focus, it is incredibly dark in here. It's actually rather late for me, 9 p.m. in the evening on a Friday night. Well, I don't really party, so that's no loss for me. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.